Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Khalifa Maheswari Nazima from 5A, and today I want to review a book called Rewriting Islam, Decolonialism, Justice and Contemporary Muslimah Literature by Ms. Hasnul Insani Johar. And I want to get into it immediately. So I love how this book starts out because this book starts out with explaining about Miss Hasnul's personal experience with racism while she was living in the US. And this makes us readers empathize with Miss Hasnul and makes us curious to read the book more and curious about the internal motive of why Miss Hasnul decided to write this book. And yeah, so let's start from the introduction: spirituality, collectivity, solidarity, and sisterhood. The start of this book is also one of my favorite parts because it starts with explaining about what decolonizing is, since decolonizing is a very important word in this book, and this book uses the word decolonizing a lot. And let's start with the first chapter. So the first chapter is called Decolonizing the Crossroads of America and the Bildungsroman. And this chapter focuses on The Girl in the Tangerine Scarf by Moja Kaf and A Map of Home by Randa Jarar, which are two novels. And the first quote that I want to say is from page 21. This chapter focuses on how these two books are interested in multiple identity positions, which is national, ethnic, religious, and hybridized cultural forms, specifically the Bildungsroman and popular music. So, from the start, this chapter explains what the aim of this chapter is, and I love it because us as readers, we know, oh, so this chapter wants to focus on this. So we already have a knowledge in our mind about what this chapter is going to talk about. And then my favorite part in this chapter is talking about popular culture and music because it helps especially non-Muslim readers to understand that we as Muslims, not all of us are extremists and not all of us are banning popular culture and music. Actually, a lot of us engage with popular culture and music, and it is explained through the books in this first chapter. And the second chapter is Decolonizing Muslim Cultures and Food Cultures. So I want to quote from Ms. Hasnul in page 43, the Eurocentric American slogan focusing on white Anglo-American cultures into the maglubeh pot, the Arab dish with various ingredients, vegetables, meat, and rice, representing different ethnicities and people of color. So this particular chapter talks about the melting pot, the terminology, the melting pot, and how this book wants to shift instead of the melting pot into the maglubeh pot because the melting pot has an outdated meaning, which is trying to generalize all American identities into one identity, focusing on the Anglo-American identity, and we should change it into the maglubeh pot because maglubeh pot is very diverse and it highlights more on the diverse cultures that exist in America. And chapter 3 is called Decolonizing Islamic History of Muslimah Leaders. And what I want to quote is in page 58, which is moreover, since the post 9/11 outbreak of Islamophobia, Anglo-Americans have tended to represent all Muslim women as Arabs, regardless of how many Muslim women are not from Afghanistan, Pakistan, or the Middle East. And yes, I think this needs to be highlighted because a lot of people refer to us Muslims as Arabs when in fact there's many of us that are not from Arab countries or from the Middle East. Like me, I am an Indonesian Muslim and I'm from the Southeast Asia region, and there's many other Muslims from Africa and from other regions that are not in the Middle East. So I love how this chapter focuses on that and also on female Muslim leaders. And there's chapter 4, which is Decolonizing Collective Trauma, focusing on Shailah Abdullah's Saffron Dreams. And I want to quote from chapter 75, which is, this chapter troubles dominant narratives of Euro-American trauma, which tend to represent all trauma as Eurocentric trauma and ignore non-European trauma. And it is very true because I think all of us see on the media about how Eurocentric trauma is highlighted from like the victims of the 9/11 tragedy, while us Muslims we also experience trauma from post 9/11, how we experience racism and also the trauma that Muslim people are now experiencing in Palestine, which also happened because of America aiding Israel. And yeah, and the chapter 5 is decolonizing collective justice and Islamic social justice, which focuses on a novel called Alif the Unseen by G. Willow Wilson. And I want to quote from page 92. This chapter focuses on how Alif the Unseen by G. Willow Wilson used cyberspace to decolonize American borders and American individualism in the science fiction novel. And indeed, this chapter succeeds in explaining the aim of this chapter itself, while also connecting this chapter with a surah from Al-Baqarah. And yeah, the last 3 chapters talk about decolonizing immigrant bodies with Laila Halami's Hope and Other Dangerous Pursuits, decolonizing collective surveillance with Laila Halabi's Once in a Promised Land, and decolonizing collective memories with Shaila Abdullah's The Beyond the Canyon Wall, and Randa Jarrah's Him, Me, and Muhammad Ali. And so, in conclusion, what I think about this book, I think this book is very suitable for college students, and definitely this book is very coherent. Seeing from the chapters and the sub-chapters, they are very in order and very coherent. And also, with each chapter, the aim of the chapter is explained in the beginning, so us as readers, we understand what the specific chapter is talking about. However, I am not a big fan of the format of this book because the writing, like the font in this book, is very small, and the paragraphs, the space between each paragraph is also very small, so it's a bit confusing for me to read sometimes because I wear glasses. And also, I think the introduction for this book is too long because the introduction has 21 pages, and I think it's just very long for an introduction. And yeah, but I think that's it. That's what I think from this book. It's definitely very suitable for us college students when we want to learn about rewriting Islam and decolonizing. And yeah, that's it for my review. Thank you so much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.